So the Epstein files. Of course, it's the news of the day. It's always the news, and we have to keep it in the news. So what's next for Trump? And most importantly, Ghislaine Maxwell has now entered the chat. So obviously with Trump, there's going to be distractions. So here's the failed distractions thus far. He's tried Jedi mind tricking everyone that the file doesn't exist. These are not the Epstein files that you're looking for. He's now tried telling everybody that the file is a hoax. Yeah, that happened a couple days ago. Then he started enacting random tariffs on random things like copper, Mexico, produce, everything else. Today, he announced that he has been in conversations with Coca-Cola and ordering them to put real sugar in Coke. Yeah, Coca-Cola, people reached out to Coca-Cola and found out that conversation that they would not confirm that conversation and said they had no plans to do so. Then he proceeded to, in quite the embarrassing Oval Office incident, started yelling and calling his supporters MAGA stupid and idiots. And yeah. Then his piece de resistance, he's now named it Russia, Russia, Russia. It is now the Epstein hoax. So those distractions having failed thus far to get the Epstein files out of the news and MAGA back on board with him, let's investigate some potential future distractions. Even more extreme tariffs. I mean, let's face it, another one would be China or the EU or, huge one on some other country. He could attempt to fire Jerome Powell, the Fed chairman. That would create an absolute meltdown in the financial markets, which would be newsworthy. I don't think it would get Epstein out of the news, but it would certainly be newsworthy. He's now denying that he's even written that letter. He could bomb a minor country. Off the top of my head, Panama, very low probability of Greenland. Iran's very high up there. Yemen again, because the Houthis are back, even though he defeated them. So it'd be kind of we defeated them and we won, but we're going to have to go back and bomb them again. He could attempt to bomb a major country, Russia. Let's say China, he could call Xi up and say, hey, Taiwan's fair game. I need to get the Epstein files out of the news. Who knows? These are all possibilities. But that being said, how does this saga end? I mean, everything has to have an ending. I highly doubt that it's going to be a satisfying one for those of us who are not connected and those of us who, believe in the, Epstein didn't kill himself, whatever, all that stuff. But for sure, the saga has to end with something, right? It's going to end. The tension is too big. It's not going to stop until there's some type of conclusion. And Congress is definitely not going to give that to us. So what are they? Now that Ghislaine has entered the fray, and her lawyers and family are pleading directly to Trump, most plausible is scenario one. There's a couple of different paths this one could go. It's a pardon, but of course there's strings attached. Now, Ghislaine might not want to go for this because accepting a pardon is in itself an admission of guilt. So here's option one. With what Trump has been saying about the Epstein files, now they've been tinkered by Obama and, all sorts of people. With them, every accusation is an admission, right? I mean, it pretty much that bears out. Everything Trump touches dies, and every accusation is an admission. If they're screaming that they want to protect the children, when they vote, they're absolutely not going to vote to protect the children. So Trump would obviously have to grant the pardon. Bondi in this scenario, the Epstein files are going to be altered because they can, right? They can selectively release portions of the Epstein files. He's already alluded to that by telling her that she should absolutely release the portions of the file that are credible. So let's just go with this for a second. So assuming they are altered, of course they're going to remove Trump from the files, right? That's just number one going to happen because these people are trash. And absolutely, they're going to go through everybody in that list, and possibly with some judicious additions. It's going to implicate his political enemies, and he's going to remove the names of people that are his supporters. Off the top of my head, I'm sure there are some prominent Republicans in Congress that just voted to seal the files again that might possibly be on that list. Just a thought. So what that means is that the only person that could, there's only one person, right? If they do this, there's only one person that could really say that they altered the files, and that would be Ghislaine Maxwell. So obviously they have to pardon her with a very, very tight NDA. And in exchange for the pardon, she would go testify. Suddenly, she'd be allowed to testify before Congress, and she would absolutely verify that the files that they released with the names that they added was the real file. And that one is probably one of the most likely scenarios, only because that's how they operate. It's going to be a complete hatchet job of his political enemies with accusations flying around, and that will re-energize the MAGA base, and they will be rabid to go after the people on that list, as you should, as anybody should, as long as we can be assured that the list was not altered by people that might have an agenda to do so. Option 2, the Epstein files are destroyed. Again, this involves Trump and the Attorney General, Pam Bondi. So the Epstein files will never be released, and they're going to be destroyed. And I mean, they alluded to that with, there are no files. In this one, the only person then that has knowledge of the files would be Ghislaine Maxwell, and she, of course, would have to be offered a pardon, and with a strict NDA that she never discuss what's in the files. In fact, it would be to her benefit to just say the files never existed, going in lockstep with the administration. Scenario 2, this is something Ghislaine is also working on: Supreme Court exoneration. She does have a legal challenge that is attempting to make its way up to the Supreme Court. The Attorney General has to weigh in on whether it supports that or contests that, but the thrust of it is that the government offered Epstein a non-prosecution agreement in exchange for something. The person who offered that and the state attorney general that enforced it, one of them became Trump's labor secretary in his first administration. He was the federal prosecutor that offered the non-prosecution agreement. The second player in that, during the second investigation into Jeffrey Epstein, was the Attorney General of Florida, who is none other than Pam Bondi. So in this scenario, which is extremely likely as well, given that I don't think Ghislaine necessarily would want a pardon, because she would still, that's an admission of guilt. Other countries might not accept the U.S. pardon, so she's still open to prosecution in other countries. Because bear in mind, this was an international ring. So in this one, the DOJ purposefully tanks the argument against Ghislaine's appeal. As you can see, the Trump Supreme Court is basically just made up of Trump. And the Supreme Court rules that Ghislaine was unfairly prosecuted given the non-prosecution agreement that Jeffrey Epstein had, and due to the lack of evidence or the lack of clients in which she supposedly provides services to, she walks free. Exit Ghislaine Maxwell. Bye. Now, the third scenario, the Epstein option. This is the one that gets into Epstein didn't kill himself, which, I mean, given the videotape, I don't think anybody could say that he did kill himself at this point. It's pretty obvious that there's some foul play or malfeasance going on. In this option, parties unknown, foreign intelligence agencies that were employing Epstein, which I believe that to be the case. I know some people believe more the gentleman or country on the far right. My opinion is more the country on the far left. But Epstein was backed by a foreign intelligence organization to get blackmail material and dirt on prominent politicians, bankers, celebrities, and everything else so that they would fall into lockstep or at least be jerked to heel in case anything should happen. Two countries off the top, I mean, two countries right there in most circles, it's either Russia or it's Israel. That being said, Epstein died in Trump's administration. Epstein was arrested, he was prosecuted and jailed and deceased, all under President Trump in the first administration. So there we can see in the two gentlemen in the center, one of them is at least a bit of a humorous take on the vice president's appearances and meetings with people that suddenly wind up deceased. In this one, obviously, Ghislaine does not survive this one. Freak accident in jail. However that happens, with Ghislaine out of the picture, the Epstein files get buried so deep and destroyed, and they never see the light of day. Bye, Ghislaine. So that's pretty much how this could end. This is basically how this could end. I don't see this having a happy ending for any of us. And by that, I mean a happy ending where the unaltered documents are released, we see who the clients were, and we proceed with prosecutions and or demanding that justice be done. Don't see that happening. Those three scenarios are the most likely given the current state of the Epstein saga. But we have to keep it in the news. We have to keep it in the news, or there will never be justice for those girls. There will never be justice for us as a people. That there are some things we just cannot allow. There are some things we have to stand up for. There are some things that we have to demand. This happens to be one of them. So it doesn't matter if you're MAGA, left, right, socialist, liberal, conservative, moderate. This is an us versus a them type of thing. And whoever the them is, we don't know yet. That's why we need the client list released. We need to know who they are. We need to know who these bankers are. We need to know who these celebrities are, who these politicians are. And when we know, we need to prosecute. And that one will be the sticky part. Because I don't see this administration prosecuting them. I mean, Congress would not release the files, despite going out later and saying, oh, we're all for protecting the children. And, you need to release the files 2 hours after they voted not to release the files. So that should tell you the hypocrisy that's going to go on there, the scapegoating, the gaslighting, and the nasty stuff that's on its way. So that being said, please hit like and subscribe. I really appreciate watching this video, and we'll follow up on more updates as they come along. Thanks.